Hello, I'm Joe.
And TJ?
We are the Schoolhouse 302, and we are here with our review and reflect series. This is where we put a bow on what we've covered through the entire month. And this month was really about lessons learned throughout this hybrid experience, throughout the pandemic, really, that we believe is going to change education. TJ, why don't you dig into our blog posts a little bit and tell our audience some of the key takeaways that really resonated with you?
Yeah, so I mean, leading change is always hard, Joe, but leading change during change, that's really difficult. But the good news is when you're leading change, it speeds things up and we learn a lot. So if we can slow down and reflect, we can see that we've really grown as individuals and specifically as principals, school leaders, and teachers. And we highlighted 5 of the key takeaways that we've learned so far, things that you and I agree we think will stick. Blended learning environments, um, key tools, social interactions, social, even the use of Zoom, something like this. But the blog was really pointing at the fact that educators, we struck back. We learned a lot through this, and we have a lot of things that are now really good tools in our toolbox.
Yeah, it's really tough because we're still dealing with this, right? It's not like we're suddenly looking back and reflecting on. We're still in the mix. Things are still very challenging, but I think it is actually a good time to sit back, reflect, even for our listeners. You know what? Where have I grown as a human being? I love the fact that we also threw in that straightforward 2x2 matrix by Paul Bolton, John Hopkins, doctor. And when we talk about change, what was anticipated, unanticipated, both positive and negative effects, that's definitely a tool I'm going to use moving forward. But we also uncovered some great resources that we thought were powerful. We always like to introduce some books that we believe are incredibly helpful. And this time we had not only some of the great books, but we also interviewed one of our authors that we featured, which I know was a true joy. You want to dig into that a little bit, TJ, and talk a little bit about the One Thing series, Doug Reeves, and that powerful podcast?
Sure thing. Like you said, we always introduce 3 books in our hashtag Read This series. And 2 of those 3 books were by Douglas Reeves. Dr. Reeves was on the show, our One Thing series, but his leading change work is awesome. I always say that leading change in school, in your school book, I've given that to more school leaders than any other book I've given out, Joe. And to have him on the podcast was a pleasure. But I really took away a lot from his intensity and just his bias for taking action as a leader. Man, did I listen back on that several times in terms of the actions that we need to take. And critical to it was don't wait for buy-in. There are a few things that are so important and would be, a crisis within a crisis. Grading being the one that he pointed to on the show. But man, that was a great podcast. And those are awesome books.
No doubt. And we also featured school leadership that works. And I know we wanted to talk about that also because and feature that work. There's also district leadership that works for some of our district leaders who are tuning in. What I like about that, though, TJ, so many people get hung up on that. Like, what am I going to do? Like, just make it real simple for a second. Like, if somebody wants to start a diet, they get hung up on like what diet is best. Well, I always think about what Ken Blanchard said, and he basically said the one that you stick to. And so, sometimes we get, lost in the sauce and we stop ourselves from even starting because we get, really in that decision-making crisis. And that book features things you got to do. So couple that with Dr. Reeves' work, and I thought it's a powerhouse Read This series. And I agree, the bias for action, that phrase is powerful, that we have to have a bias to act for the betterment of our students. And so major takeaways with him, and really just overall a great month on leadership, change, dealing with change, like you said, while it's happening. This isn't change we're orchestrating. These are things happening to us, and you got to really learn how to sail in those rapids. So, any last thoughts, TJ?
No, I just hope folks are able to go check out that blog post, listen to the interview with Dr. Reeves, and pick up one of those books on leading change. Just because the change is happening to us doesn't mean we can't control some of it, learn and grow. And that's what we always say, Joe: lead better and grow faster.
No doubt. Thank you.